A significant severe weather outbreak is possible today for more than 50 million Americans, stretching all the way from the Oklahoma Panhandle and Kansas up through the Dakotas. And over the next 2 days, the hazards aren't going to stop, as we're going to have an additional wave of severe weather expected on both Wednesday and Thursday, impacting large, densely populated areas throughout the Midwest. This setup has the potential to produce all hazards of severe weather, including widespread damaging winds, large to giant hail, and even the potential for some strong tornadoes. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to break down everything that you need to know so that you can stay informed and make intelligent decisions during and ahead of these storms. We'll also be providing live coverage right here on YouTube in the event that we do get a tornado outbreak. So make sure that you're subscribed to us here and click that bell so that you know exactly when I go live covering this event. Let's get right into today's forecast. Before we get into things, let's take a quick look at what's going on around the map right this second. So we have the remnants out here near Kansas City of last night's significant widespread damaging wind threat pushing through south of Kansas City and into southwestern Missouri throughout the day. We also have the remnants of a little bit of an MCV that we had out here in Kentucky, as that is now pushing towards the Tennessee border and into Nashville. The main severe weather threat that we have right now is just associated with flash flooding here near Greensburg and Litchfield down in Kentucky. So if you're in those areas, definitely be on the lookout for flash flooding. And even if you've been anywhere experiencing a lot of rain, which has been widespread over the United States the last couple of days, you need to be attentive in the event of possible flash flooding. Okay, first things first, we're just going to take a quick look at the temperatures and the cloud cover for the day. You can see things getting quite hot throughout the day today here on Tuesday, getting as high as 92 in St. Louis, Sioux Falls, 91 in Fargo. Pretty warm all the way throughout Texas, and even out on the East Coast in the Northeast up in Boston, getting up as high as 85. So that's definitely something to pay close attention to throughout the day. Looking at the cloud cover, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a similar story with some clouds throughout a lot of portions of the East Coast here, and even clouds throughout the central United States, especially developing throughout the day, with some clearing going on along the Mississippi River Valley. I also wanted to take a quick look at especially Kentucky over here, where the flash flooding risk is going to continue to increase. This is an area where we've already had a lot of precipitation fall, and over the next 24 hours, at least modeled by the HRRR, we're definitely looking at even more precipitation with some locally higher amounts in central Kentucky, even as far down as Nashville, getting upwards of a quarter of an inch more precipitation. So if you're in those areas, definitely stay attentive to the flash flood risk. So another thing we need to pay close attention to is the dry line setup that's going to be extending from western North Dakota all the way down through the Nebraska Panhandle. As you can see this thing kind of forming up right through here. This is by 4 p.m. today here on Tuesday the 9th. So this is going to be a large driving factor for our severe weather in the northern plains. We also need to pay attention to the moisture return that's going on here throughout a large portion of the United States. As you can see, this moisture just surging north with these dew points rising up to 69 in Fargo. That's pretty impressive out here. That's just throughout the day today. And as we move into Wednesday, you're going to see large regions of moisture continuing to encompass much of the Midwest. And don't forget that this is where a large portion of our severe weather risk is going to pose the largest threat throughout the next 2 days into Wednesday and Thursday as well. As we go into here now on Wednesday night, we're looking at, again, significant moisture present throughout Chicago, St. Louis, Davenport, Indianapolis, large portions of the Midwest, and eventually all the way through Thursday in the early morning hours. Here we are at 1 a.m. That's the latest that the 6Z HRRR will take us. Alrighty, looking at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for the day, we do have two enhanced 3 out of 5 regions here, stretching from central northern Nebraska all the way through the Dakotas and northwestern Minnesota, as well as the secondary region down here in southwestern Kansas into the Oklahoma Panhandle. Looking at our tornado probabilities today, we do have a hatched, so that's a SIG 1 tornado risk, a level 1 intensity, outlined with a 5% region all the way from Nebraska into northwestern Minnesota and into the Dakotas. And we've even got a 10% tornado risk, which is the largest that we've seen in a couple of weeks, I believe, going through North Dakota especially. So that's going to be where our largest potential is for tornadoes, and especially for significant tornadoes throughout this hatched region. Looking at the wind probabilities as well, we do have a 40% region outlined in North and South Dakota, as well as a SIG 1 wind risk throughout large portions of the country, all the way from extreme northern Texas through northwestern and northern Minnesota and the Dakotas. So a significant wind risk associated with this line of thunderstorms if it begins to congeal. Taking a look at our hail look, it's a similar story. We've got a hatched level 1, SIG 1 intensity risk for large portions of Nebraska and the Dakotas, as well as a 30% region that's outlined from central northern Nebraska up through North Dakota, where the largest potential for large to giant hail is going to be possible, especially with initial convection, if any cells can stay discrete and have strong rotating updrafts. Jumping right ahead into tomorrow's outlook, this is again for Wednesday the 10th. We have a very large marginal risk of severe weather encompassing New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the Virginias, all the way as far south as Amarillo, Texas. But our main risk for severe thunderstorms is going to be around the quad state region of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and northwestern Illinois. So that's where our biggest risk is going to be. Jumping into our tornado probabilities, we do have a large 10% region around that same quad state area I just mentioned a second ago. We are hatched at a SIG 1 risk as well, where the largest risk for intense to long track tornadoes is going to be present. Again, there is a large 2% risk as well, encompassing areas as far southwest as Kansas City, where an isolated tornado or perhaps one embedded in a line of thunderstorms cannot be ruled out. So if you're in any of these areas, you need to be paying close attention. Looking at the wind outlook, we're seeing a similar story with the largest risk at 30% throughout Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, and regions of eastern Iowa. So again, there's still a 15% region where wind damage is very possible, stretching as far south as central Kansas. So lots of areas that need to be paying close attention to the winds. Looking at the hail, again, a very similar story, a SIG 1 risk where we've got a large region outlined where large to giant hail is going to be possible. We have a 30% region outlined in the same areas we've been mentioning out here in the Midwest. And finally, we're going to take a little bit of a look at what's going on Thursday. And this is one of the most concerning days for me right now. And that's not just because it does encompass the St. Louis region, which is where I am located. I think this day on Thursday is going to be the biggest risk for isolated, large to violent tornadoes. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the potential is definitely there. We do have a large marginal level 1 out of 5 risk outlined again as far southwest as parts of Texas and stretching all the way into New York. But we have this level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk that's encompassing very, very populated areas such as Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, and again, large parts of central and northern Illinois. So this is definitely going to be a significant concern, and we're going to put out another video on Thursday, most likely, talking about this event, and we will be broadcasting this as well. All right, so now we're going to get into the timing of what you need to be concerned about associated with the severe weather. Throughout the morning here, we do have the continuation of this little MCS mess that is going to dissipate as it makes its way towards the Ozarks. We're still seeing more precipitation in Kentucky that could cause the risk for flooding. But as we get into the evening hours on Tuesday, this is when our most significant concerning convection is going to fire off. This is going to bring the most large, widespread potential for damaging severe winds with gusts up to 60 to maybe even 80 or higher miles per hour throughout parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, and even into Nebraska and parts of central Kansas. An isolated tornado can definitely not be ruled out as well. Storm mode being a concern, but if we can get any discrete supercells to fire, we're definitely going to be pretty concerned with a tornado risk as well. Initial convection will pose the largest risk for hail as well in the earlier evening hours. Okay, and as we continue through time a little bit, we're going to see the progression of this line of thunderstorms pushing as far into areas like Fargo, Sioux Falls, Sioux City, and Omaha. Things will die out a little bit in Wichita, but this is the type of situation where you could get some late night supercells that fire off with the influence of the low level jet that are able to get spinning pretty good, and you get a nocturnal tornado throughout this corridor down here into Oklahoma and Kansas. So definitely one to worry about for the potential tornado risk later this evening as we get into the potential overnight hours. As we continue to go forward in time, we see more of a clustering developing in Kentucky. Again, this is where I'm mostly concerned with a flooding risk, but we're going to see another line of thunderstorms that's going to kind of continue to push off towards the northeast throughout the day as well, or throughout the overnight hours, I should say. As we get into Wednesday, a little bit of morning convection might help things get a little bit more leveled out with more scattered storms throughout large portions of the East Coast. But as we go through the day on Wednesday into the afternoon hours, this is when our largest risk for severe weather is going to begin to develop. As you can see, storms are going to start firing off like crazy in and around the triple point on Wednesday, associated near kind of the Four Corners region of Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois, as I've mentioned before. We're going to be watching another line of thunderstorms here, with anything that's able to stay discrete in this corridor going to pose the most significant risk for large to giant hail and the potential for large and potentially strong tornadoes. Getting into the later evening hours here on Wednesday, we're definitely going to see a little bit more of a linear segment developing, pushing through areas like Davenport and Chicago, and eventually into Indiana and parts of the lower peninsula of Michigan. That is going to be where our largest concern is going to develop for pretty widespread, severe, damaging wind potential. As we get into the overnight hours here in the early hours of Thursday, we're seeing again that line start to continue and push through the Chicago area. That's as far as the 6Z HER is going to take us in terms of looking at the timing of these storms. And again, all of this is a little bit volatile on the timing. We don't know the exact timing yet. So make sure that you're subscribed to us and following us on all platforms so that you can stay updated and stay weather aware with all of the severe weather over the next 3 days. We are going to be covering this live, so make sure you have notifications on for broadcasts as well. Thank you very much for choosing Will Bratton WX as your source for trusted, science-based weather information. We're going to have more forecast videos coming out over the next couple days covering this severe weather, so we will see you in those videos.